Hello, this is The Shift with Frida Liu, and today I have a special guest all the way from Singapore. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗡, and I am a passionate person. I love talking about sustainability, so thanks so much for having me, Frida.
So the show, what's The Shift about? In case you don't know already, whether it's seismic or small, there's a need to make a shift towards sustainability. How are individuals and organizations doing this? It's the collective effort of everyone.
Well, Future Market Insights reports that the global plant-based food market size is predicted to expand by 3 times, witnessing an increase from $11.3 billion this year in 2023 to $35.9 billion in 2033. So adopting a more plant-based lifestyle can actually lessen the impact of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions that result from food production.
Here today, my good friend, we're here with Anabelle Co-Martinent, the CMO and co-founder of Phuture Foods. You see the logo in the background. You know, Anabelle, have you seen, I guess, consumer behavior change? Even from your other business around being more healthy, right? Have consumers changed when it comes to plant-based food? And since you started this joined them in 2022.
Yes. So previous to this, as you know, I've already been looking into healthier diets with creating cold-pressed juices like 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗃𝗧𝗪. And a decade ago, it was an uphill battle. But we've seen that transform until the word cold-pressed juice became a norm. Every auntie and uncle on the streets kind of knows what it is. So exactly the same transformation is happening for plant-based. Maybe it's a mouthful to say plant-based food right now, but I do believe that the time will come that it becomes a norm, just like a computer in every home. When Bill Gates said this long, long ago when we were much younger, a computer in every home was far-fetched because we couldn't afford a computer back in Manila, but today it's a norm. Everyone has a computer walking around with also a mobile phone. So plant-based will be the same. We see the shift already happening, being more conscious, the veganism and vegetarianism on the rise. Younger generations, like I would say the Gen Z, the next alpha generation, is already accepting and understanding the consequences of it. So I think there is already a shift, but we will see it more as sustainability and climate change becomes an issue.
A PC in every home, you weren't born yet.
Yeah. Although I have to say, being a millennial myself and, talking about the shift, I have in the last 5 years, seen me myself become a flexitarian, a lot of other people around me. So now going towards plant-based alternatives is actually still not seen as affordable for your young average Malaysian. Why is that?
So plant-based is a technology, right? So it's from plants, however, we are making it better, more efficient, and more delicious. This is important in every food industry.
Absolutely.
Whatever health benefits we do, if it's not delicious, it's very hard to be sustainable because people will not do a repeat purchase or a repeat eating or drinking of any products. So with plant-based, we feel that as more and more dollars are spent into the technology, into the advancement, then it becomes more and more affordable. Just like the computer and the mobile phones, the same issues. Back then, we couldn't imagine it because we couldn't afford. But with the right investments from private and then public, we see it becoming cheaper and cheaper until every cleaner, driver, private people all have mobile phones. So the same for plant-based. We're seeing already a close price between, let's say, plant-based chicken as well as chicken. It's right now double the price, but I do see a future where it becomes a norm, if not cheaper, because of the resources.
Right, okay. There's also this argument, right, that plant-based meat is heavily processed, a la mock meats. So which we find in the older vegetarian restaurants, right? So how is Phuture different?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. I'm so glad because most of the time when people say processed, it comes with a negative connotation. But if you drill down what it means, it's just the process or the step that needs to be done in order for it to become another item or another product. So in Phuture, what we do is we do mechanical and heat processing, which means it's just like cooking. When you cook something, you are processing the ingredient into a whole meal. That's a process, right? So it's the same thing. We source non-GMO, a lot of natural products, and the most basic processing is heating element, mechanical element, which is a lot of machineries that press it into, let's say, a chicken nugget.
Right.
And the last step of the process is the high and the low temperatures. The low, which is freezing it, because we send out future food in frozen form. So let's say it's a plant-based nugget, it's a plant-based chicken, then it's flash frozen until it gets to the end consumer. So these all small elements are called processing. And
Cakes are processed.
Cakes are processed. A lot of things are processed before it becomes the final goods, except, of course, when people ask me, what is the best, Anabelle? Well, the best is still go to the market, get the raw material, and eat the raw food. But that's not what we all want to eat as Asians, as Malaysians. We all want delicious food. So, we balance off living.
Right.
We have the raw elements, which I think is the best. And then, there's also plant-based nuggets, plant-based chicken, as well as other plant-based options.
Right. Well, we know with change, there always comes a little bit of resistance. And, as you've just explained a bit about the processing, what other misconceptions are there towards alternative plant-based meat?
Typically, the taste profile, I think, I don't blame these people, especially if they've tried version 1, version 2. Even the big companies in the United States have gone through many steps and process. Just as the old mobile phones, I don't know if you know, but pre-Danos, I used to carry around a very brick Motorola, which was very heavy, and look at how the mobile phones of today looks like, right? So a lot of changes are happening, but a lot of misconceptions. So second one is that plant-based is expensive. For me to be a flexitarian is expensive. The answer is no. It's only expensive because we are not getting a lot of options. So it's a law of supply and demand, right? The more people demand, the future generations demand, there will be more solutions and more investments poured towards it. And hence, every supermarket, every cafe starts to do vegetarian meals. If you look very closely today, Malaysia is a very competitive space for food. And yet you see the rise of vegetarian food in cafes, in certain locations. 10 years ago, this was not the case. So that is already a conscious pivot of restaurants and SMEs and businesses trying to adapt and say, hey, people are looking for this. Yes, it's not yet in volume, but they make it now available, which is not present in the past. So these are misconceptions. It's expensive. It's going to be too costly, it's not delicious.
Right. So I guess in case people don't know, what are flexitarians?
Yes, okay. So flexitarians are basically people who are flexible. But of course, this is very much anchored on plant-based. So veganism is very strict. They don't take any animal products. Vegetarians are more flexible, but they don't eat animal products except for a bit of cheese and honey. But flexitarians, they, just like us, I assume, we're
I like
in our heart, we want to eat more plant-based, and we do practice it as every conscious effort that we can. However, we're in a meal, people served some chicken dishes and every now and then cheese and other things. We feel open and very easily adaptable, not like the typical, I can't eat this and that. So flexitarians are on the rise because they have a conscious mind. I want to eat more plant-based. I choose more plant-based. However, on certain days, on celebrations, on peer, outings, I can eat everything. So I think this is what we are seeing on the rise. And of course, if you do practice Meatless Monday, that's already a small inch towards flexitarianism because you are choosing to go plant-based on certain days. And I think that the rise of Meatless Mondays is a very good movement that has gone through a lot of stages, and now it's become quite a norm to a lot of, I would say, established international companies.
Right. I was just thinking, for example, I'm try to 5 days a week to take vegetables and maybe just twice a week having meat, right?
Yes.
And it's just I go on holidays and everybody's like, I say, can we order vegetables, please?
Yes.
Right? Instead, researchers also estimate that 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from raising meat. So producing 100 grams of protein from beef, for example, sends around 25 kilograms of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, making the same amount of tofu on the other hand. So emits around 1.6 kilos. So plant-based meats, meanwhile, have greenhouse gas emissions 40 to 90% less than traditional meats. Now, with those statistics I've just shared with you, do you think there's enough will on the part of people to change food production, though especially in a country like Malaysia, right? I mean, I've just shared those statistics for people who don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
do people have the will? Do people
So,
care?
I think that together with government as well as information in the market, these two factors come together, then there will be a will. And then, God forbid, any catastrophe that makes us wake up to the fact, just as COVID has given us a reality check that it can happen, that the world can stop operating if need be. So I hope that it doesn't come to that, but we do see, for example, issues like chicken prices going up through the roof, or maybe it could be avian flu, bird flu everywhere. These are situations where there will be a force of nature, right? From government trying to keep up with demand and investing in certain things. So I do think that the time will come, but it will be a slow change unless the government sees that this is a change that's needed. Just like technology. When the government, I always like to equate to technology because it's the same thing, right? Like when we were adopting, let's say, 4G or the speed of the internet on your hand on a mobile phone, that wasn't possible back then in the ICQ era when we dialed up on a modem. So it's the same thing. If the government puts out the infrastructure like the cabling, the enablement of companies to invest further in this technology to make it better, everyone will be a winner. So I think we really need to work hand in hand, not just with government, but schools and people of the next generation. Because for all these like us, we do have our habits formed already and we've lived half of our life.
Yeah.
But the younger generation have so much ahead of them. And I feel that as they move into the working space and to the government space, the changes will happen faster because they want it. Unlike us, we want it. You were conscious 5 days a week, 2 days, not really. But for them, it will be a very different landscape. So I think that Malaysia is slowly changing, but we do see other countries like Singapore at a fast-paced speed in terms of investment. In terms of consumption, I don't know. But if you say in terms of investment, governments focus on where to go, private investors, private equity investing in these things, you see it very actively happening, unlike in Malaysia.
Because I think like it's more of an issue for them. Food security is more of an issue, water and what have you.
That's true. And food security, I believe, will be an issue in every country of the world eventually. But I fear for the day when that really comes. I do hear Malaysian governments speaking about food security, and I believe every country who is quite advanced in their hierarchy of need is talking about food security. However, which one is taking it seriously as part of the first three agendas rather than the other developments? So Malaysia is perhaps catching up on that.
Okay.
Well, you discussed inflation, food security, and even supply chains. So has been, with all of that in mind, what has been your go-to market strategy in getting people to make that transition into the marketplace?
Okay, good question, because in every adoption, we need the products to be on the ground for people to talk about it, to experience it. So some of the things we've done is partner up with companies who are very much close to the hearts of consumers. So we're talking about brands, right? Because they are already having a captured market, such as Coffee Bean, Old Town Coffee. A lot of these restaurants and F&Bs, food and beverage, have their own fans, right? They're a group of fans, and they already come to these places because they know it's familiar. So we've partnered up with them. We've also gone to some of the very cool concerts, just like Blackpink as well as Billie Eilish, to bring plant-based closer to the hearts of the young generation. And surprisingly, I was serving there at the concert, and you do see a lot of young, and I'm talking about young, 12, 13, 14, with their dads and moms, coming and ordering plant-based food because they are already conscious. Maybe as a parent, it wouldn't be your first choice at a concert, but then your children are already, Mom, this is what Billie Eilish loves. Billie Eilish is plant-based. So these are some of the conscious changes we're seeing. And I think by bringing this closer and closer to consumers, while we are figuring out technology changes, praying for adoption, praying for government support, all of these things, while it's simultaneous, we need to get the products to the consumers. And it's waiting for that tipping point for meat and plant-based meat to be at equal footing in pricing, I think that's when the magic will happen.
Right. Okay. So, which you talk about teenagers and bring their parents, right? What's happening? I know you got a teenager.
Yes.
What's happening in your household with growing children?
Okay, so interestingly, my daughter's 13, my son is 9 years old, and I'm seeing a shift in terms of the way they eat versus when it was during my time. Obviously, first, let's talk about the parent. When my mom was at my age, I don't think she was conscious about what plant-based was. She wasn't conscious of maybe vegetarianism because we're Chinese, but it was on occasional days that they go vegetarian.
Yeah.
We do eat vegetables, but there's not a table conversation. Nothing much to discuss on the table, on the dining table. But today I see my son enjoying ice cream mostly from plant-based companies, even though he didn't know what was the difference. My daughter has been enjoying when she sees, let's say, we go into a 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝗆 and then she sees a plant-based wrap or a burrito versus a 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝗆 chicken, for example. She would pick plant-based over that. And that's a surprising turn of events for business owners because they want to understand, why would they choose that when there's a fried chicken? It's because they already have that conscious thinking and choice and discussions at the school. When I was young, the only discussion was the CFC spray net that you shouldn't use because the environment, ozone layer. But today, some of the schools disallow students to bring packaging to the school because they don't want them to have plastic everywhere.
Right.
They start to talk about compost, which I didn't know until I was much older. These are conscious conversations. And of course, COVID sped up all this understanding. Mom, there is such a thing happening in the world. So they see animals, they see documentaries. Last time, TV, for us, we watch what the TV gives us. But today, they choose what they want to watch. And when they watch TikTok, they watch socials, they see animal slaughter.
Yep.
We didn't get to see animals slaughtered before. So just that thought alone, seeing the animals slaughtered, I think is a powerful picture that allowed them to say, but mom, I don't want to eat this. I don't want to eat. So they are flexitarians. We eat mostly vegetarian at home because luckily I have a helper to cook Mondays to Fridays. But on the weekends, we do go out and we do explore because I want them to grow up like normal kids like me when it was back then as a norm. But later on, I think they will have different choices as compared to me being an adult, maybe in my 20s. I believe that they are the future and they will bring the change.
So speaking of future, what is the goal of Phuture Foods at the end of the day now that you're also in Singapore and Thailand?
Yes. So Phuture is created by Asians, meant for Asians. I believe that this is one of the most powerful things that we as Asians, we can create many things equally as good, if not better, alongside other continents. And I think that we understand most, even though you're from Singapore, from Malaysia, I'm from Philippines, we all have a few things in common, such as the way we want to enjoy food around the table with the families, the way we want to stir fry and wok hei, all these things, right? These are the differences as opposed to other technologies where maybe from other continents, they will have very good branding. As we know, Americans are very good at that. But for Asians, because it's built here, it will be more cost effective. Second, it will be tweaked according to what the companies will want. So for example, in our dealings with Cafe A, B, and C, whatever their brand is, they will always have a question about texture, design, their kitchen equipment. These are all factors we can take into account because we have the factory in Malaysia. So bringing business solutions for businesses and affordable plant-based meat for consumers.
All right. Final question, Anabelle. Do you feel there's enough sense of urgency, and should there be more urgency into moving towards a flexitarian or vegetarian diet? And what would be your call to action? Right? Yeah.
That's a good question because I do think that there is a need for all of us to just be aware. I think that by talking about it, it's already the first step. I'm not making you vegetarians tomorrow, but I'm just saying that if you take a moment and you have all good Wi-Fi, good networks, all you got to do is Google it up, right? You look at the statistics of living much longer by eating plant-based food. People having a better life, better better way of living in terms of whether it's diabetes, it's weight, excess weight. Malaysia is high on the list.
Yes.
Hence, I do think that there is an urgency. However, 10 years ago when I saw this data, when I was already in Malaysia, 10 years after, it's still the same. Malaysia tops on diabetes and obesity rates in Southeast Asia. I do think that you need to be the change in your family by reading up on statistics. Don't just believe me or Frida, all this kind of show, but read on your own the difference that it makes for cancer patients, for people who have issues like diabetes and obesity. It will bring change to yourself. And I think the moment you taste the first change, the first step, you feel better, your digestion is better, your poo is going out better, you will know that, oh my gee, there is something to it, and let me look into it. And hopefully by then, more cafes, more technology, better prices is already surrounding everyone, that the shift makes it so much easier to say, okay, I'm going to be flexitarian 5 days a week, 2 days of maybe a bit of easygoing. So I think the best thing you can do is read up on plant-based diets, read up and watch all the, Netflix has a lot of films on this one. See the changes that's happened to other people, and maybe it might do the same change for you.
Right. You talked about the shift, and of course, you've been watching The Shift, Frida, together with Rianne and Anabelle Co-Martinent from Phuture Foods.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.